Good morning, everybody. My name's Rick McCutcheon. I'm a Dynamics 365 MVP, and I'm here today with Natalie Jackson from Emfluence. Natalie, introduce yourself and tell the people what you do.
Hi, it's great to be here, Rick. So I am with Emfluence. We are one part digital marketing agency and one part marketing automation platform. We are Microsoft Dynamics users ourselves, and we have a really strong integration to Microsoft Dynamics with our marketing automation platform. I am Emfluence's resident Dynamics geek. We have a lot of email geeks, but I am the Dynamics geek among us. So I'm excited to be here because not only do I like marketing automation, but I'm also a really big fan of CRM, especially as it pertains to Dynamics.
And I know you're heavily involved with sort of the community for marketing and, helping others with their sort of strategies, which kind of led to a thought leadership panel we're putting together with MS Dynamics World. Do you want to talk a little bit about that panel that's coming up?
Yes, I'm really excited about it. So as a B2B marketer myself, 2020 was the hardest year of my marketing career. It really, I think that the struggles around not having trade shows in person, not having some of the direct mail or account-based marketing tactics available to us that B2B marketers had relied on for so long. 2020 really kind of pushed us into a new realm of marketing. And so that's the topic for our panel that I'm super excited about, which is what did COVID change about the way that we as B2B marketers can communicate with our target audiences, as well as what it didn't change. So we've got a really great lineup. I'm excited to be on there to talk about B2B email. It's a big favorite topic of mine. But we're also bringing Jen Capstraw, who is the co-founder of Women of Email. I like to say in the email channels, she's email famous. We're bringing in Michelle Justison from Avanade to talk about data. And basically, how can you architect your data? What platforms do you need? How should that data be feeding various campaigns and channels so that you can be a better, more targeted, and then more empathetic B2B marketer? So I'm really excited to hear her data perspective. And then we're also bringing in Marie Weiss from Marketing Copilot to talk a lot about content. So how does content layer into the journey? What kinds of content pieces do you need as a B2B marketer? And where should you be leveraging them in the buyer journey? So it should be an awesome panel.
And last year was a very interesting year for B2B marketers because, trade shows disappeared. And now all of a sudden we're saying, okay, what do we do now? Where do we not just spend our money? Where do we put our resources? What's working and what's not working? So I think we're going to have a great conversation on how that changed and how quickly it changed. But also I'm interested, we're talking about that B2B buyer. How did they change, right? Because they're not going to the office anymore. They were sitting at home making decisions.
Yes. And that's so interesting just to think about the fact that we were already in a spot where so much of the buyer research and the buyer journey was done before anyone ever picked up the phone. And now it's like, gosh, I mean, how do we as B2B marketers confront the fact that, our target audience is so far through the funnel by the time they ever fill out a request to talk to a salesperson. So, I mean, I think that that kind of lays the burden of proof on the marketing team, doesn't it? Right? We are the buyer journey up until the very moment of conversion at this point.
And what I saw very quickly was everybody shifted towards digital marketing and social marketing. And all of a sudden I started getting into my inbox and on my social networks, all these events that became digital events. So I think we need to have a good conversation about, okay, we're all doing digital events now. What works? How do we get our message through? And, how do we make sure that people see us, understand what we do, and actually show up at our events?
Yeah. And I think the other really big thing that changed is we had to get more clear with our definitions of what leads were, right? Like before it was like a lead is a lead is a lead is a lead. And so I think that 2020 kind of taught marketers, especially in the B2B space, that there are really different types of leads, right? There's more of an awareness type lead. You probably don't even know who they are yet, and they're just trying to figure out who you are. There's the marketing qualified lead where they've downloaded some content, you met them at a virtual event, and it's a totally different type of lead than a person you would meet in person at an event, right? And then you've got the sales qualified lead, which is like, they actually do want to talk to your sales team. Have they actually made contact yet? Who knows? But, I mean, they're definitely in more of a buyer state. So it's really kind of added on, I think, a lot of extra work to the marketing team to figure out how am I marketing at each of those levels of leads versus like just marketing to leads overall, which is what we might have done, say, 5 years ago, or even in 2019. But we definitely have a lot of work to do to get more money out of a pipeline in a year like the one we saw last year.
For sure. So let's take a minute, Natalie, and talk a little bit about Emfluence. And what's happening at Emfluence? What's going to happen in 2021 that's exciting?
Yeah, that's a great question. Of course, as you mentioned, digital was a really big component of a lot of marketing strategies in 2020, since, physical items weren't really on the table. So on the digital side of our agency, it was a great year because so many people were interested in doubling down on their digital marketing strategy. And that's something that we do really, really well. I have a ton of experience, more than 20 years of experience in that. So, it was a lot of fun to think through the challenges of businesses that maybe had more of a traditional marketing plan. How do you flip that to virtual? How do you flip it to digital and make it still perform really well? So we had a lot of fun doing that. On the marketing automation side, I love to think about where and how are you marketing along the customer journey. So I think one of the things that for our marketing automation platform, we've been talking a lot about is, especially for like Dynamics users, how do you understand your customer journey so that you can better layer in marketing automation? And so that's something that on the influence marketing platform side, we've been trying to put together lots of content and do webinars and really try to support our marketing automation community through better automation. So, where if I know my customer journey and if I can use Dynamics to figure out what my customer journey is, now I know where I need to support with email, and I can start layering triggers and layering in automation, which Dynamics is so good at. So that's really where I think we're going to be talking a lot about that in 2021.
And what I like about Emfluence is that you still run an agency, right? And because you still run an agency, you're not just supplying technology to people, you have to supply results. So I'm sure your agency team is working away saying, hey, we need this piece of functionality, or we need to do this differently. So I think, you've got your working laboratory right there at Emfluence all the time, making your application better.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I always like to say too that we actually do take feature requests very seriously, both from our agency team, because, of course, they're right there breathing down our neck, but also from our user community. And that's one of the cool things for me as a marketer working at Emfluence is being able to see people make requests that are often like awesome requests that you've never thought of. And as soon as someone says it, you're like, that's brilliant. I love that. Right. And it's cool to see those features come to life.
Very good. So I'm looking forward to hosting your panel. And I think it's probably, when I look at those guests, I'm thinking this is a real all-star panel for marketing. So I think we're going to have a fantastic conversation. So we'll be checking in with you again to find out what's new at Emfluence, and we'll see you on the panel in a couple of weeks.
Great. Thanks, Rick. It was great to be here with you today.